Nun side of a base at the Mishnah. And we actually have pretty easy Gemara tonight. Chatzah Shnifitza. The halacha down. Chatzah Shnifitza, shtei ruchos. You have a courtyard which is broken open on two sides. Either end, so it goes straight through. And so to a house which is broken through on both sides. Or a mavi whose beams or whose posts have been removed. They are still permitted to carry in their Shabbos. They are forbidden on subsequent Shabbosos. Rabbi Yossi Omer Na'ah. If you're going to permit them on that Shabbos, you have to permit them on subsequent Shabbosos. Excuse me, if they're also for subsequent Shabbosos, then Asurim Bosos Shabbos are forbidden on that Shabbos as well. And he means to be Machmir, so Mara will point out. He says you can't even be Machmir for that one Shabbos. You don't say Hutzur Shabbos, once part of Shabbos has been Mutter, the rest of Shabbos is also by anything other than the Eruv itself. By the Mechitzas you don't say that. So therefore if you know the Mechitzas go down in the middle of Shabbos, you're not allowed to carry for the rest of Shabbos. If you don't know, you don't know, but if you do know, you can't carry. Okay? Ask Mar, why did you pick a scenario where it's broken on both sides? Even if it's broken on one side, it's still the same problem, right? A mavi can't be part of a mavi or a chatzar can't be part on any side, right? Like what makes an interesting point. This is a little bit difficult to accept, but it says where below Ravu isn't it going like Rav? The Amar chatzar niteres b'shnei pasin, who says a chatzar is mutter with two pasin. Now, the Gemara seems to hold that we're talking about according to that where the Mishnah says nifritza means one of the two pasim are missing. A chatzar needs two chayim, one on either side of the opening. Doesn't need a tzursa pesach unless it's more than 10 amos wide. But if it's less than 10 amos wide, it needs to have two pasim, one on either side. As opposed to mav, which only needs one on one side. So it says Gemara, our Mishnah is going like Rav. Must be like Rav because it says nifritza, and for some reason the Gemara assumes that nifritza means one of them is missing. So even if albeit only one of them is missing, but one is missing, so if it's not valid, why need the parts on the other side? Even parts on that one side, it's already ruins the entire circumference of the chatzar. Rabbi Shmuel b'shem Rabbi Zera said b'machlokas. So Shmuel name Rabbi Zera said it depends. You're right. How to interpret our Mishnah? It depends on the following machlokas. How so? Here he who said that you need one pass in order to be matter above mavui. V'ka b'shnei pass echad. Here there is one pass. It's up. That's why the problem is that it's parts on both sides. Because it's parts on both sides. Then what do you need? You need a pass on one side, meaning on one side a lechi suffices, but on the opposite side you need a tzurus pesach. You have a chatzah which is open on both sides, so on the one side you need a lechi, but the other side needs tzurus pesach. So it says more really here nifitza means that the pass is intact. The problem is that you have two sides open now. The two sides open, on the other side a pass does not suffice, even two passes will not suffice. You need to have a tzurus pesach, you don't have that tzurus pesach. Okay? So it says what man the maratam b'shnei pasin v'kol b'shnei pasin. He who says you need two l'chayim, which is Rav. Here too he says in the Mishnah that it's only about two l'chayim. Yet nonetheless, again, it's a problem because you need to have tzurus pesach on the other side. Why need to have tzurus pesach? Because we're talking about where you have an opening on either side, on both sides, and the opening on both sides requires tzurus pesach on one side, passing on the other. Now it says more nifretz min emtza. What if it's only open on one side? And it's in the middle of the wall. So, mutter, it's permissible. Shmuel Amar Aser. Shmuel says it's forbidden. Now the Gemara has grave difficulty with Shmuel. Why should it be Aser? If it's parts on one side, but only in the middle, that means on either side you have wall. And the opening is specifically in the middle. So those two sides should serve as what? Pasid. Right, no, not Tzurus Pesach, L'chayim, even if it doesn't have Tzurus Pesach, right? So that should serve as the pasid in order to be mat to the middle section, right?
Yeah, Shmuel says it's more than 10, no, 12, 10 hours.
That would be a good answer. Gemara doesn't give it though. Says Rabbi Zir said in leis hadar ufan the Shmuel. The Lieberman changed the gifts slightly. Says in leis hadar the Shmuel ufan, which says the same thing. Says if not that Shmuel had this Kabbalah from his Rebbe, he had a Kabbalah from his Rebbe to this extent, to this respect. Gosh, it's very difficult to say this. Why is it difficult to say this? Because obviously, what's the problem? Once you have a chaya, if you have both, as we mentioned, if both sides are still intact, so the fact that it's porous in the middle should not be a problem. So therefore, it's very difficult to say like Shmuel, unless Shmuel had some Kabbalah to this respect, this regard. Now, Nivratz Kolosa Ruach. Let's switch gears. At least going to pay Moshe, we're switching gears. We're talking about now a house. Let's say a house is porous on one side. One of the walls crumbled on a house. Okay? So, Rabbi Yossi Rabbun Hadoy Achsadra, it's still permitted. Why? Because it has Pitikra. It's similar to Achsadra, which has a Pitikra, right? The width of the ceiling serves as the wall on that side. From the bottom and side of the base, last 3 lines. Ilu Achsadra Shemin Muteres. Just like an Elsadra is not permitted, so here it's also permitted. Period. New thing. Rabbi Yehuda, Lo Amar Rabbi Elazar. Now this actually doesn't go back to our Mishnah, it goes back to the previous Mishnah. The previous Mishnah said that a chotzer shenifratz Rishus Rabim is Rishus Rabim Dami. A chotzer, a courtyard which opens up into Rishus Rabim is Rishus Rabim. We don't pass in that way. We pass in a courtyard which is open to Rishus Rabim does not become automatically part of Rishus Rabim unless many people actually walk in the chotzer. But he holds it does. So it says more Rabbi Yehuda, Lo Amar Rabbi Yochanan, I guess it should be actually Lo Amar Rabbi Elazar Ela b'chotzer umavui. That's only where that area which is now open into Rishus Rabim is a courtyard or an alley. But what happens that area which is now open to Rishus Rabim is a house? Kigesheru. So it's like a bridge. Meaning, what does a bridge have? A bridge has a roof, right? So too this house, since it's roofed over, so therefore that has pitikra. So the pitikra, even though it's open to Rishus Rabim, the pitikra, the width of the ceiling, the thickness of the ceiling, serves as a wall to differentiate between it and Rishus Rabim, so it doesn't turn according to Rishus Rabim, even according to Rabbi Elazar. For Rabbi Yochanan Amru Asur. New thing again. Rabbi Yochanan Amru, the Asur Bein B'Shabbos Hu Bein B'Shabbos Haba. Rabbi Yochanan both passing like Rabbi Yossi Mishnah that in this scenario it's forbidden both on this Shabbos and in subsequent Shabbos. Meaning if the walls fall in the middle of Shabbos, Mr. Zuger, then the walls fall in the middle of Shabbos, so the chutzah remains forbidden subsequently for the rest of Shabbos and for subsequent Shabbos. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan said koshed. The halacha by kosh, which is one of the herbs used by the incense, by the ketores. Only we spell it in our sitter, and then the Bavli kuf vav shin tes hakosh. I would say pitum haktoros atir with support hakel bav anora morsh siyash bos nei harkomish kol shusha shamona hakosh neimosar, right? Koshed. So koshed here is spelled differently. So David koshed and kiruya, which is a gourd, umavui and an alley, viger and a ger, convert, v'ama'aret. And in the case of an amoritz, all these cases will be explained. Chamorim, they're all to chumra. We have to be machmir in all of them. Okay, what are they all? Now the words are going to explain one by one. Koshed, what's koshed? It's not hakoshed, which is a type of herb or fragrance. V'achomos, another type of fragrance. V'lashem samim, and other types of fragrances. The ukachim because the meiser that you bought with meiser sheni money in Yerushalmi. V'edem atami tumasochlin, yet they are not considered to be foodstuffs, and therefore they don't have the tumah which pertains to foodstuffs. Div Rabbi Akiva, it's Rabbi Akiva's perspective. Om Rabbi Yochanan Nuri Na'ah. In the ukachim because the meiser, if you could buy them with meiser sheni money, matami tumasochlin, they're perforce they must be edible substances. If they are not metami tumasochlin because they are not edible substances, they are not susceptible to the tumah which affect edible substances. Then they cannot be acquired with meiser sheni money. Rabbi Yochanan Chamarim. it says we have to be machmir in this case. That's one case. He goes further. He says a double chumrah. Says we have to assume it's a tami to masoichlin. Yet on the same hand, on the other flip side, we have to not assume that perhaps we can't buy this kesem meiser because we don't know exactly what its status is. So therefore, we have to be machmir on both accounts. Kiruya, what's the status of a gourd? The tzlina tamar we learned over there is a funny case. The case in the Masechta Pora. Kiruya, this is a gourd. Now, gourd, although it serves sometimes in the bucket, is also porous, and water can collect in its pores. Okay. So you have a kuria sheet pila b'mayim shurim l'kadesh. You have a kuria which you use to dunk into water, which is suitable for kiddush mei para. So there the Gemara discusses the first time you use it should be okay, because the water which collects in there you immediately spill out. But then then there's water which remains in the pores and becomes possible by remaining in the pores of the bucket, right? Because it's no longer mayim chayim. So the question whether you can use the bucket a second time around, right? Because this bucket made out of gourd, again, since it's porous, the second time you use it's going to have water absorbed in its walls, which is not mayim chayim and not good for paraduma. So then the Mishnah also discussed there on top of this, even the first time you use it, maybe you can only use it if you don't pour directly from the gourd. Because if you pour directly from the gourd, people are going to think gourds are okay. So if you might have to pour from the gourd into another container in order to use it for paraduma water. Okay? So the bottom line is there's a whole discussion there. The Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan comes, he tells us, Rabbi Yochanan chomarin, you have to be machmir, so if you may not use it at any point in the process, either subsequent times, of course, because it's not mayim chayim, or not even the first time. You're not allowed to ever use a gourd, and even use another vessel. Also, since we don't know the status of a gourd is, we're machmir, and we just reject it as being a suitable vessel at all to use in order to make paraduma water. Okay? Mavoi, what's the case of Mavoi? That's our Mishnah. The Tzina Torah we learned over there. So if you have Mavi whose Kara was moved, so it's also right. It says Asurim b'Shbeim b'Shabbos, Zu b'Shabbos, both are also both for the Shabbos and for subsequent Shabbosos. What's the case of Ger? The Tani, we learned Ger Shni's Gayer, a Ger who became Jewish. Vayelo Yenas, and he had wines. Varman, he said, this is Ernest and Julio Gallo, they become Jewish. I read a fascinating article, not so, actually it was a boring article, but it had an interesting opening, it had a catching opening, and then the rest of it was blah. Over the weekend in the Jerusalem Post about the Carmel wine factory. So it said there was a guy who was giving a tour, his director of marketing or something like that, so he was giving a tour to the reporter. So they poked his head into a wine processing room, and all the people in the room looked at him very strange. So the marketing director, Clara should be very familiar of all parts of the operation, explained to the reporter, I'm not allowed to go in here. Why not? No, he was Jewish, not Shomer Shabbos. Okay, Mechal Shabbos, so you don't allow Mechal Shabbos, they don't allow Mechal Shabbos in any of the processing rooms, because then there would be a problem of Yain Nesach, right? So, what? Mechal Shabbos and Mahadran?
No, I'm not saying about Chal Shabbos, but I'm saying
Semi-Shomer Shabbos? I don't know, it depends. If they wanted the wine to sell in Neighbrak, they ain't going to pass muster, right? No, they have the OU now. They have good Hechsherim on Carmel. Super Hechsherim. They're B'chol Rabbanut Rechovot, I think. What? Yeah, I assume they're pretty strict about that. So it says so Ger Titani Gersh's guy Vilu Yenos, and he had wine. Normally said, it's clear to me beyond the shadow of doubt that they were not used for any illicit avodah purposes. Bisman shenasu agav atzmon, when he made them for himself, meaning for personal use. Tohayim, they're okay to. Actually, he himself was responsible for them. Tohayim lo, they're okay for him. He may use them. Utmei others may not use them. If you could rely on other people to make them, then you can't rely on the other people, and you can't use it himself either. Rakiva Omer, we don't make this distinction. If they're good for him, they're good enough for other people. It's Tmeim Lacher, it's Tmeim Lo. They're Tomei for others, and they're Tomei for him as well. Rabbi Yochanan says here to her Machmir, Tmeim Bein Lo, Bein Lacher, and they're Tomei for everybody. Amoretz, a similar case to the Amoretz. The Tani we learned, Amoretz shenisman lios chaver, and Amoretz who decided to become a chaver, meaning reliable matters of kashrus and tumantara. Voilo tagos, and he had stuff which he allegedly was taught. Varmit says, Bogili shenasu b'taro. It's clear to me that they were done b'taro. Bisnat shenasu gabiato, and he himself was involved in their preparation. Torah slow to meim lachem, the Torah for him and Torah for others. Agabi achem, they're made by other people. Tmeos bein lo be'achem, they're no good neither for him nor for others. The Kilmer, same idea. In Torah, they're good. It's good for him, they're good for other people. In Tmeos lachem, they're no good for other people. Tmeos they're also no good for him. And of course, finally, Rabbi Yochanan Chomarin, we have the Machmir. Tmeos bein lo be'achem, the Tomei across the board.
It's interesting, Rabbi Kiva is matur because he himself was Amoritz.
Nobody answers it.
No, but if it's good for him.
No, he's saying that cynically. Saying it's good, yeah. No. It was Machmir, no, he wasn't. What? We eliminate Amoratim, yeah. Right. Yeah. So name is Rabbi Akiva didn't like the Amoratim either. Okay, very good, Mr. Zuger. That's right. That's what this lead. Okay. You build a second floor on top of two houses on either side. If you have bridges. Allowed to carry underneath him on Shabbos, Rabbi Yehuda forbid this. Rabbi Yehuda also said, Marvin, Mavi, I'm foolish. You can make an Eruv in a Mavi, even though it's on both sides, since it has walls on two sides. Rabbi Yehuda's famous sheet is that all you need is two walls, midaraisa. The Chachamim forbid such a case. You need to have three walls, midaraisa, not two. Rav Huda Amar. Now the question is how to interpret our Mishnah. The case with the two houses and another floor on top of them, between them, or a bridge. Rav Huda Amar, ein rishus harabim mekura. There's no such thing as a roofed over rishus harabim. Amar Rav Shimon bar Karsa, no. Mina midbar lamata. I'm sorry, read that wrong. Below mina midbar lamata, don't shout for the midbar. Or midbar mekura on the midbar. They were covered over. In the midbar, what was covered over? In the midbar, was it covered over? What was covered over that would be Rishus Harabim? He's saying that in the midbar. Look, that's the Pnei Moshe Pshat. He says the Agolos were covered. How do we know they were covered? Because what was on them? The crushing. Right, so they consider a roof. That's Pnei Moshe Pshat. So he says, in the Mehaki saying Rishus Harabim Makura is not Rishus Harabim, the way place you learn Rishus Harabim from is the Agolos. The Agolos were covered. So it must be a coverage Rishus Harabim, right? Very good. So the truth is, the Bible says that really the place of Rishus Harabim was in between the Agolos, right? Remember that? Now, the Korban though says a different shot. He says, what was the covering in the midbar? You guys are not thinking. What was today? Today was this Ruchag of Sukkot, right? And what was the covering? And on air cover. Right. So the clouds of glory were the cover. So it says Gemara, Mastisi lo amrakein. Lamaisa, our Mishnah doesn't say like Reb Shimon Karsh. No, it says Ela v'chei chen gshar mufulashim v'tali tachtei m'shavas di Rabbi Yehuda v'chachomim osrim. It says you cannot carry under the bridges. You can carry under the bridges, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, chachomim maser. But even according to chachomim, lo amar ela b'chachomim oisrim. Well, it says chachomim forbid this. Chachomim osrim. Who? Chiyav chayav chatas ain't covered. It doesn't say you're chayav chatas, right? Even Rabbanan says us are not chayav. And we know the oldest diuk in the book, Shabbos 101, is chayav is the terminology for Nisa D'Oraisa. Us is the terminology for Nisa D'Rabbanan. So therefore, here in our Mishnah it says Chachamim ask you to carry underneath the bridge. It must be only Nisa D'Rabbanan, not Nisa D'Oraisa. Rav Huna is correct. There's no such thing as Shusarayim D'Oraisa if it's covered over. Okay. Ma'u sheyetzorich mechitza. That was a fascinating conversation here. The kind of conversation we had to play Carbon 8 explains it, and really Pnei Moshe basically as well. According to Rabbi Yehuda, what allows you to carry under the bridge? Is it the walls? Or is it the bridge? The walls, because the bridge has posts. And those posts are what works together with the surface of the bridge, together with the roadbed. But the walls are essential. Or if I hypothetically had a bridge without any walls, right? Let's say it just was stood on beams as opposed to on walls, so that too would be considered to be a valid area to carry under, because the P-Tikra works even without the walls. In other words, to explain it a little bit better, is it the road or the surface above you plus the walls, or the surface above you even without the walls? Is the mechitza an integral component? So Maushi Tzarech Mechitza, Rav Amar Tzarech Mechitza is an integral component of the center. Rabbi Yossi Amar Ein Tzarech Mechitza. Rabbi Yossi says you do not need a wall. Amru Chevraya Kumi Rabbi Yossi. So the Chaver said for Rabbi Yossi, Yos Amar Rabbi Bo. Now of course Rabbi Bo didn't appear. It's Yos Amar Rava, right? Rava said good. Need a wall. The Tzir Amar Rabbi Yehuda said Lo Te Mechitza Gavoa Mikoyso Shebeneim. A wall is no higher, no better than a wall between the two. Now, I was talking about we have two courtyards next to each other, and there's a well between the two of them, and you need to have a wall between the two. And Rabbi Yehuda said you don't need to have a mechitza in the well itself. Even the wall which goes across between the two courtyards on ground level, that's sufficient. Okay? But with Silam Ice, you need walls. Walls are critical to Rabbi Yehuda. It requires a wall, right? Amar Alon, he said, no! That's a raya! Boo! Taman Sheyesham Tikra. Of course, Taman Yerushalmi means here or there, right? So here means here. Even though there usually means there, but here means here. So, as Amar Taman, Payah Sheyesham Tikra in Tzarech Mechitza. By us, what I said, where you have a tikra, a wall, you don't a roof, you don't need a wall. But over there, in the case of the border between the two chatzeros, she'ain sham tikra, there is no roof there. So there you need a wall. Now, period. New case.
I thought we established in P-Tikra that you don't need a wall.
No, in fact, we hold Lamaisa. Lamaisa, you need P-Tikra, you need two walls. But the thing is, we don't pass and say, Rabbi Yehuda says the two walls can be opposite each other. We pass and the two walls have to be adjacent to one another. Okay? So we don't pass like the P in which holds the P-Tikra works by itself. You need at least two walls. According to Rabbi Yehuda, though, the two walls might be opposite. We hold they have to be adjacent, or an angle to each other. Okay? So, Dam Rabbi Yehuda, now this also is a separate statement here. Rabbi Yehuda said, now this is going on Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah. And Rav Yehuda, just to confuse you, right? Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, and this is Rav Yehuda, right? Rav Yehuda is commenting on Rabbi Yehuda. He's saying, Hodat Amar Mifulashin Labika. That which Rabbi Yehuda said that you can carry under the bridge is only if the bridge opens into an open area like a valley. But if the bridge was, let's say, over the Edens, right? So an overpass over the Edens or the Ryan, so you can't carry under the overpass. Why? Because it's open to Rosh Hashanah. That bridge doesn't cancel. And here the Mefarshim say, because Rabbi Yehuda holds Asurabi Vatlim Mechitzta. The masses which go under the bridge cancel the efficacy of the bridge, right? Now that's of course if there's no barrier. There's a barrier which does not allow the masses to go under the bridge. Then the bridge is effective, even though the bridge is over Rishus Harabim. Okay. Hadjal Paragal Kol Gago Seir. That is in the Bavli, one of the hardest broken middle of Shas. Shalmi wasn't so bad, except that I slept through 2 blot of it, so I'm not 100% sure. Okay, next parak. Highlights Tefillin. I think it's the last parak in the Masechta. Yeah. Nothing in the Yerushalmi is long. Hamayt Tefillin. This is the first few blot are pretty cool. Hamayt Tefillin. What? Next week. Hamayt Tefillin. Somebody finds tefillin. Machnisan zug zug. You bring them in pair by pair, meaning one shall rosh and one shall yad at a time. You put on 2 at a time, both Rashi's and Rabbeinu Tam's. Okay? This is going to be an issue in the Gemara. Not quite, but close enough. When is this true? Be Yishanos where the old ones, meaning that they're clear you that tefillin. But new ones, they might just be amulets or jewelry, right? Potter. So therefore, you're exempt for bringing them into the city. Mitzvah and tefassim. When you find a large pile, tefassim means a bundle, or a pile. Okrichos, a bundle. You stay there until after Shabbos and Avim, and then you bring them. If it's dangerous to stay out there, mechasin, you cover them, v'holich and you leave. Hamotzi tefillin machnisim zug zug. Bring them pair by pair. Derech malpush, the way you wear them. Achas broshav, achas bezro. One on your head and one on your arm. Ram Gabi Amer Shnayim. No, there's the actual word Shnayim here. Shnayim barosha, Shnayim bezro. 2 on each, right? Rabbi Lazar said, Hanais and tefillin balayla. Somebody puts tefillin on at night. Oiver basei transgresses a positive commandment. Shneimah says, you should maintain this law daily. Yomim v'lo leilos. Day and not night. Now there is another girsa here, which Reb Chaim Kanievsky and Lieberman and many people bring down. It should say, Yomim teaches us v'lo leilos. Yomima teaches us prat l'shabbos yom tovim, to preclude Shabbos and Yontif from tefillin as well. Ask the Gemara, Rabbi Avo Yosef Umasti Ramsha wasn't Rabbi Avo sitting and learning at night utfillin al love, and his tefillin was upon him. Says more mitzadin havu. They weren't directly on him; they were sideways. In other words, he moved them so they weren't directly above his eyes. So it wasn't to the mitzvah, right? And the one shaliat came in. It's a typo. It should be coming pikadon hayabiyado. He was holding them in his hands. He wasn't actually wearing them. So in Echrami at night, he would take off his tefillin. He wouldn't actually wear them, even though he still had them with him, but he didn't actually wear them. Is the boy Meimar? Or there's some who said, Lamar Elinichon. The only problem is to actually put them on at night to begin with. But if you already had them on before Shabbos before nighttime began, mutter. You'll have to leave them on at night. So Rabbi Avo had left them on from the day. He hadn't put them on at night to begin with. He left them on. Vista boy Meimar Sam said, Mitzvah sonat shetichle harego minashu. I don't remember this from the Bavli. Even saying it's a menachos and menachos daf lamed vav. But I remember this by Ner Chanukah, right? The mitzvah is until people stop walking through the marketplace. So here's the same shiur from by tefillin, that you can wear them at night until people stop walking through the market. Amazing thing, concept.
I don't remember the initial statement here from Anachos.
Which one?
That you're over on a.
Say no, that is there. That I do remember. But I remember this thing about till the shuk.
It certainly wasn't in Eruvin.
No, it's not Eruvin. Isabay nishmina minado. This is not a bit very different. Isabay nishmina minado. Somebody wants to learn out that you can't wear tefillin on Shabbos and Yotiv, not from Yamima, but from the following drasha. For you station B, for you a sign, we should see most days which require a sign. Yotu Shabbos is Yom Tov as opposed to Shabbos Yotiv. Shein Gufa knows the day themselves are a sign. You don't need an independent sign, the sign of film, right? But ask him, I don't say you already have one drasha for that. Lo kfar ksiv yamiyamim yamima. Don't you already have Yummy? Why need another drush of Os? Says Yerushalmi, a fundamental answer. Should have a drum roll here. Ladies, no official night seder tonight, so we can be more liberal in what we do in the base matters. Leisach ela kai ta'amar Rabbi Yochanan. It's no less and no more than that which Rabbi Yochanan said. Kol milot lo mechavra. Anything which is not explicit in the Torah. Misam chilei min asrin sagin. You bring a basis for it from many different places. In other words, it's not a good drasha. Not a perfect drasha to preclude chops you have from filling. So therefore, if we can bring a couple of drushas to say the same thing, we do so. Now the Hebrew Lieberman brings on the Mukha Yosef here from Baba Kama, who says, I'm paraphrasing, okay, he doesn't say exactly this, but essentially Mukha Yosef says the name is Rebbe the Ra'ah, that fundamentally, even though in Adam dung Zeir Shava Elin Kei Kiblu Mirabo, a person can't make Zeir Shava unless he was caught from his Rebbe, but if a person has a very clear-cut Kabbalah from his Rebbe about a certain halacha, independent of the Zeir Shava, he's entitled to go and make Zeir Shavas in order to support it. And he bases it on this Yerushalmi. That any time you have a Kabbalah to something, even though it's not explicit in the Torah, you can go and make your own drashas up. Even Gzeir Shavas, in order to support your position. Okay? Which is a very interesting concept. Explains much of Shas, where we have Amoraim, Tanoim, learning Gzeir Shavas, which they obviously were not Makabel, but they had a Kabbalah as to what the halach is, and then they induced it into the Psukim. Okay?
So the cart came before the horse.
The cart came before the horse, exactly. Or the chicken before the egg. Now, say some more. Nashim Minayin, how do you know the women are exempt from tefillin? Says, teach your sons and not your daughters. Some is chayiv in Torah, is chayiv in tefillin. Nashim she'en chayavas b'Torah, nashim who are not chayiv in Torah, and chayavas in Torah, not chayiv to wear tefillin. Learning Torah, right. Hey, well, the interesting note, it's going like, obviously going to the opinion that Shabbos is Zman Tefillin. Shabbos is Zman Tefillin, so it's at night. Right. According to that opinion, right. Hey, Simon says, the Kasha, Micha Bashol is Lavesh's Tefillin. Well known that Micha, daughter of Shol, put on Tefillin. Ashes Yoina, once around the topic, the wife of Yoina the prophet, she would go up on Aliyah L'Regel, Micha B'Yonah Chachayim, Chachayim were not Moicha. So we see the women are chayiv in tefillin. Rabbi Chizkim Sheravo said, no, not true, they did protest. Ishto Shiona Hishava, the wife of Yoina, they kicked her out of Yerushalayim. You know what that means? Rabbi said it's a fascinating concept. Sounds like the women didn't come in Aliyah L'Regel. Just the husbands. What? No, going to Yerushalayim. Yeah. Right.
She had to go up because her husband was in the whale.
No. The Gemara brings down that this is together with Yoina, and she was sent back. Maybe she was doing B'Torah's chiyuv. Maybe she was saying, I'm a chiyuv to do that, so I want to come. So that's why they sent her away in order to, because she was a feminist. They didn't want feminists in Yerushalayim. You want to come, subservient to your husband, isn't it? But feminists, no. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a very strange thing. What do we care if she comes up to Yerushalayim? Micha Bashol. Maybe she wants to bring the korbanos of no little regular. That's it. Not Bikurim. Bikurim she can bring. She owns land, but korbanos she can. Maybe she can't bring korbanos. It's like Chulim Bazara. Could be. Maybe. All right. So anyway, it's a little bit difficult, but that's what it says here. And Micha Bashol, it did make Micha against her. Have a boy Meimar. In any event, they wanted to say, in explaining our mission, now remember in our mission, Rabbanan said you're bringing one pair at a time. Ram Gamliel says you're bringing two pair at a time. So wanted to say, Al Daita the Rabbanan Ein Mechuver. According to rabbis, it's not. It's the exclusion of Shabbos and Yom Tov from Tefillin is not the Raisa, and that's why technically the mitzvah applies on Shabbos. So therefore, you're bringing Tefillin on Shabbos, so bring it in the way you're making the mitzvah one by one, right? Al Daita Ram Gamliel Mechuver. Ram Gamliel holds it's a drasha d'oraisa. It's mamish the rice of the preclusion of Shabbos and Yom Tov for tefillin, and therefore when you bring Shabbos, your tefillin in on Shabbos and Yom Tov, so you're not wearing it between us tefillin, so therefore you're wearing it just because it's a tachshit, it's a jewelry, like jewelry, right? Even though it's not a mitzvah, you're still wearing something nice, but then you can already wear two. What's image one or two, and therefore Gamliel says you can wear two because it's not at the mitzvah. Or Rabbi Yeria Sherish, well, no. I skipped. No, I didn't skip. Shiur loimal ad makom shegava shalosh machzik. They said that how much many tefillin, where can you put in tefillin to the top of your head, and how many pairs of tefillin can you get up there? The kam machzik shtayim, 2. So that's more me'ata filu b'chol. Can you put on 2 tefillin even on a weekday? Now, I don't think they had Rabbeinu Tam's back then. The Sfarim do put on 2 tefillin at once. They put on Rosh Rabbeinu Tam once. Nowadays it's very rare to find because now the Sfarim also don't do it that much anymore. But they would put on 2, one over the other. Rosh Rabbeinu Tam. So asking on a weekday, let's do 2 right, 2 also. I don't know if they had to be choishes to different shitas or more likely to be Mekayim 2 mitzvahs. Well, let's put on 2 pairs of tefillin even on a weekday. So it says Marbi Chagayra said, boy, maybe if you want to go ahead, put on 2 pairs of tefillin. Rabbi Zirka said, Asher Rabbi Yehuda showed me or explained to me how high you can put on your tefillin. Amokum shemocha shalatino krofev. Up to a place where the brain of a child is soft. Of a child meaning of a young child or a baby. Tamsi, we learned over there how tiny goes Shizka B'Yushalayim. That there was a case when there was a rooster who was stoned in Yerushalayim, Shoragas and everything, because he killed a human being. What did he do? Rosh Shaltina Grofe, if you saw the soft spot on the head of a baby, and he went and he started pecking there until he killed the kid. Rabbi Yisrael said, Kini Masnisin, this is the way I read our Mishnah. Ubilvad Ayidei Shnayim. You have to dafka have 2 pairs of tefillin on at once. Rabbi Yisrael said, no. V'shem Rabbi Yachar said, V'afilu Shnayim Shnayim. You can do 1 by 1, and even 2 by 2. Have a boy Mema that wanted to say Al Daito, it's a type which should be according to Rabbi Yachar, Ein Mechuber. Rabbi Yachar holds it's not the drasha to Pilut Shabbos is not necessarily clear daraisa, and therefore he holds you can do 1 by 1. According to Gamliel, because it could be in the mitzvah daraisa, and even 2 by 2, right? Al Daita, the Rabbi Rabbana of the Rabbi Yossi, it should be. Rabbi Yossi said it's bedafka 2 by 2. He must hold mechuri, he must hold the drasha to Pilut Shabbos is clear daraisa. It certainly works daraisa, and therefore daraisa is definitely not as man tefillin. So therefore you can bring you should wear 2 because you're not being kind mitzvah tefillin. Rather you do it because of tachshit. So therefore in order to manifest that, don't wear 1 by 1, but bring 2 by 2. Ask him let him carry them. If there's not Zman Tefillin, let him carry them. Obviously, Pachos Miyarba Amos. Each time less than 4 Amos, let him carry them. Why bother with this business of wearing them if it's not as Zman Tefillin? Mutu Lavim Derech Mabush Derech Malo Derech Masli. Better to wear them to carry them, right? Because it's still less of an Avera. To carry them is less a blatant desecration of Shabbos, more of a blatant desecration of Shabbos. Mutav, and furthermore, it's also better to bring 2 at once, to be doicha per Shabbos 1 time, below stay probably not 2 times, and that's why you put as many tefillin as you want and can in 1 fell swoop. Tani echad oish v'echad oisha. Both the man and woman are equivalent in our mission, the scheme of things. They can both do it the same way, right? 2 at a time. So why does they quote the Pina holds that Shabbos is not a time of tefillin d'oraisa, so it's neither time tefillin, neither for a man nor for a woman. They're both equivalent. However, but those hold that the drasha to preclude Shabbos from tefillin is not clear cut. Excuse me. So let's draw a distinction. Let's say by a man he can wear 1 by 1, because 1 by 1 might be the mitzvah. The drasha to preclude Shabbos is not clear. By the woman, she should have to wear 2 by 2, right? Because by the woman, since there's no mitzvah tefillin at all, certainly not on Shabbos, but not at all, so therefore she should wear 2 by 2 in order to diminish the amount of activity she has to do in order to bring in the tefillin. So let's draw a distinction. Why is there no distinction being drawn according to our Mishnah, according to Gamliel, between a man and a woman? Rabbi Liz said, Matana, who's the Tana who's talking here? Matana, she's the one who's talking about a woman doing it. Ram and Gamliel. Well, the Tani we learned, Tabi ever and Gamliel, Haya nice and filling, Velo Michu Biyadu Chachamim. Tavi ran Gamliel's slave will put on tefillin. No. Says the Reb Chaim Kanievsky takes out the next three words. Whoever, who Isha. And Evan and Isha are the same. Why and Evan and Isha are the same? More basic. What mitzvahs are they chayivin? Evan Knani. They're both chayiv, only they're not chayiv mitzvah seishas man grama. So since both woman and avodim are part of a mitzvah seishas man grama, so therefore whatever and everything, because it's like it's an option for avodim, so too it's an option for women. So therefore he said echad ish v'echad isha. It's kind of like, but nowadays we have women who are mekayim lulav, women who are mekayim sukkah, right, and they make brachas also to boot. So therefore we say that it's optional for them. So same thing over here. It's optional for them, and there we said that both a man and woman have the same parameters vis-a-vis taking the tefillin on Shabbos. Okay. On to the next part of our Mishnah. When is it true that you bring in the tefillin? When they're old ones, meaning that you're for sure that's tefillin. Al chadashos mutter, but chadashos, our Mishnah said potter, but here it says mutter means you leave them out there. Lama, why? Yisharos b'dukos. Old tefillin, you know that tefillin. Chadash, the same thing, is not checked. First of all, they might not be tefillin at all, so they might be possible. Tani, now once on the topic of checking tefillin, tzorach l'bodkon echel l'shneimas chodesh. Divrei Rebbe says you have to check tefillin every 12 months. They never require check, so you never have to check them. Hillel the elder said, these are from my grandfather, and I never checked them. It's a cool dude, Hillel, right? Never checked this tefillin. Really impressive. Now, what happens if you find?
So where do we get the halacha that has to be checked twice every 7 years?
Obviously not from the Yerushalmi. It's from the Bible. Okay? Says the Gemara further. This is a very interesting halacha. They use this for cabbage, for lettuce. Now, how many heads of lettuce you have to check in a shipment in order to see if it has bugs? Same idea as our Gemara discussed here. You say 2 or 3 bunches of tefillin. You check one set from the first group, and one set from the second group. So how many sets you're checking altogether? 3 sets, right? And that's chazaka. Yitzhak ben Elazar Shah. He said, Yitzhak ben Elazar asked a question. He basically booed. Said, Echad chazaka l'kula, manavshach. Is one chazaka for all of them? Which would, no matter which way you look at it, it's wrong. Either one is chazaka for all of them, or kol echad v'echad b'ivnei out to each one all together. Itemar echad chazaka l'kulan. If you're going to say one is chazaka for all of them, you should only have to check one pair for one bunch. If you're not going to say each one is chazaka for itself, then no, meaning that each bunch has to be checked. That's not enough to check one from each one. You have to check 3 pairs from each one. But if all of them are together, so one should suffice for all of them. If all of them are not together, they should need 3 from each one of them. What is this business to have 1 from each of them? That he says neither here nor there, and that doesn't make any sense. I think we pass in that way, by lettuce also. If you have a large shipment of lettuce which comes in bunches, you check 1 from each bunch, and that's good enough. I don't think you have to check 3. But I don't remember. I'm not sure if that's correct. I think seem to recall that. Okay. Says more, if it's in time of danger, you cover them and you leave. If it's a rainy season, you want to be inside, then you take out the leather. I guess it means the I don't know exactly whether you unwind the tefillin or take the parashas, but mechasan you wrap yourself in the leather of the tefillin, or a Sefer Torah, whatever it is, and then you cover it with your garment. So that way, the Sefer Torah or the tefillin is protected by your outer garment, and you're wearing it home in a way that it's protected. Okay? Rabbi Yaakov Shem Rabbi Ba said, "Hoda de Tamar Barach." That's only by a soft one, which looks like it's actually covering your flesh, right? And when you wrap the tefillin around yourself, the leather around yourself, it looks like it's actually protective gear. Ava Bakasha, but if it's a hard pair of tefillin, and when you wrap it around yourself, it doesn't protect you at all, Masu, it's just like you're carrying a burden, and that doesn't make it any better to just carry outright in your hands. Now, it says a more very interesting distinction. Mishnah. That the type of sakara, you just cover them and you leave them out in the field. So it says it's only if they're in a depression. Mindro literally means on an angle. Because then when you cover them, they're camouflaged. Right? Avaloya makamidra, but if the place is flat. So what good does it do to cover them? Lo b'dor, we're not going to allow you to cover them in that case. Because covering requires moving some object, which is a rabbim, or the karmos, in order to cover them, right? I'm not going to allow you to cover them because they do little good. Because they're not camouflaged. Because since it's all on a straight area, so the pile is going to make an impression. People are going to notice the pile. The only time I allow you to cover them is where after you cover them, it's somewhat camouflaged because it's below ground level or it's on a slope of some sort. Okay? Says the Mishnah further. Halacha beis. Rabbi Shimon now we don't know what we're talking about yet. Rabbi Shimon says you make a bucket brigade. You give to your friend and your friend to your friend until you get to the outer courtyard of the city. And so too if you have your wife gives birth in the middle of the field on Shabbos. Mazel tov. But now you got to get the kid back into the city. So for a bucket brigade on the kid. I feel even 100. A person give a jug to his friend, his friend to his friend. I feel even the jug is going to end up in the end beyond the tchum of the original guy. It's a very difficult thing. Shouldn't go more than 2,000 amos. The initial 2,000 amos of whoever owned the beginning of the bucket brigade. Rabbi Lezer Abdumi Tarvai B'Sher Mona. They both said name Raimona. Chadamar Batinok Shul Sakora. Our mission is talking about a child who's in danger, meaning pikuach nefesh. Says more Moisli Chabai Chaverim asks, if you'll be on, just bring him in your hand. Don't make bucket brigades. Or Moisli said, what do you care? If you can do it b'derech heter, do it b'derech heter. It's true, it's a sakona. Hypothetically, be mechal Shabbos. When you do it b'derech heter, proper do it b'derech heter. Reish Lakish b'shem Levi Suchia said, it's when talking in the Reish Mishnah, talking about water. And we're talking about actually the Sefer Mishnah. We're talking about the water. I'm talking about pouring from bucket to bucket, literally. The locaine, if not, the locaine, usher. We're not talking about a bucket brigade. It'd be usher of water. It'd be usher to pass the tchum. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda Kedaita, because that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, actually the Korban changes the Kirsa completely. The Rabbi Yehuda pointed Remaim Neshem Mamish. It says it's no tchum by water. It says by water is no tchum because it's not significant. So that's why the bucket brigade can go, according to Rabbi Yehuda, even past the tchum which the water originally had. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda says there's no tchum by water. So if you can keep pouring the water in whatever direction, even goes thousands of amos away. It must be talking about water, says the Gemara, not about any other substance, because by any other substance in the world, Rabbi Yehuda says there is a tchum for the substance, which is 2,000 amos where it originally started. So therefore, if our bucket brigade can go on ad nauseum and ad infinitum, it must be talking about dafka water, not anything else.
There's no tchum by flowing water, but from a river that started out more than 2,000 amos and came into the city.
Yeah.
But this isn't flowing water.
Doesn't matter. Rabbi Yehuda is also by this. Famous case of Masechta Beitza. I can lend water to somebody else to knead their dough, and it doesn't have the restrictions of my tchum. It's a big machlokas there, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan, because tchum is the only restriction by everything, according to Rabbi Yehuda, by everything other than water. Okay? All right, Rabbi Isai. I couldn't prepare any further than this, and it's 2.5 blot. So I think we'll stop here for this evening, even though it's still a couple of minutes early. Don't say I never let you out early.